I was pruning them into pasazucayos together to the front window when the car, Javier's, parked at the entrance. Shiny silver, always flawless. Months had passed since his last visit, so long that I no longer looked for excuses. I just wiped the sweat off my forehead and watched the scene as if it were a play repeated too many times. Javier got up first, adjusting the cufflinks before straightening the lapel of his jacket. Measured. Then Lorena came out, with heels that clacked against the stone, the blonde hair gathered in a shiny bow. She was carrying a leather folder under her arm and that smile that said she came on business, not for a coffee. The bell rang twice, without pause, no warmth. I took my time to open. "Hi, Mom," said Javier, passing by me without looking me in the eyes. "We need a few minutes." Lorena, her perfume entered behind her, flooding the air before she did. "Good afternoon, Alma," she said with her rehearsed kindness. "I hope you're okay." I didn't bother to answer. They were already halfway toward the living room. I poured them coffee from the pot that was prepared that morning, now lukewarm. Javier didn't touch his. He stood there in the center of the room, where he once took his first steps, with his arms crossed as if he expected me to cave. Lorena placed the folder with softness on the small table, her precise voice professional. "There has been a development." I sat on the chair that Ernesto and I chose 37 years ago. I folded my hands and nodded. "Go ahead." Javier didn't wait. "We sold the company. Textiles Ramirez. It's done." The silence fell like a slab. I blinked once. "Sorry." Lorena opened the folder and slid a stack of documents toward me. "It closed yesterday. Everything is in order. Javier handled the sale. You remain a shareholder, so we need your signature to formalize the transfer of authority." I looked at the papers, not to read them, but to see betrayal written in ink. Javier approached, his voice sharp. "You haven't been active since Dad died. It was time. The buyer offered more than it's worth. You'll be comfortable." "You made this decision without me." "You weren't involved," he said, shrugging. "You can barely keep up. You're not contributing anything." Lorena offered her smile of mark. "This frees you from the burden, Alma. You can enjoy your garden, maybe travel a little. Cancun is beautiful this time." Javier's eyes were fixed on mine, and for a second, I saw the boy he used to be. Then it disappeared. "Now you're just a nuisance," he said. "I sold Dad's company. Good luck paying the rent." I felt a lurch inside me, but I didn't let it show. I smiled. "Okay," I said softly, standing up. "Good luck." He blinked in bewilderment. I took the pen and signed where Lorena pointed, and I gave it back to her without saying anything else. While they were collecting their things, Lorena mentioned the suite they had reserved in Cancun. Javier mumbled something about his cards being linked to the company account. I walked them to the door and saw them fade away in the light of the afternoon. Then I turned around. I crossed the living room and picked up the phone. The phone was still warm in my hand when I dialed the familiar number. It didn't matter that it was almost dinner time. He would answer. "Alma," Thomas said on the first ring with a firm voice without rush. He began to feel, although he could not see me. "They came this afternoon. I signed everything as if it were already done." He made a pause. "And you?" I signed. I made a pause and smiled too. "Okay," he said. "We're ready." I stayed in the kitchen, looking out the window at the flower beds that Ernesto built last summer. The marigolds were blooming with rebellion. The breeze was warm, but my hands were cold. When the call ended, I made some tea, as before, loose leaves without haste. I sat down at the table and let my mind travel to the past. Everyone thought Ernesto was the business. He had the charm, the laughter, the gift of knowing which was the right handshake. He could enter a boardroom and leave with 3 offers. What they didn't see was who registered the patents, who structured the subsidiaries, who met with the tax attorneys and created the shell companies that protected us. I was never interested in the attention. I was interested in security, in control. I remember one night in '89. Ernesto was at a dinner with partners and called to ask me how things looked for third quarter projections. I gave them to him by heart, down to the cents. He laughed and said, "God, Alma, I don't know how you keep all that in order." He said it as a compliment. But then, when he told the anecdote to his colleagues, he turned it into a joke about his calculating wife, the street vendor. They laughed. So did I, but I didn't forget. When Ernesto died, Javier took control as if he had been born for it. At first, I felt relieved. I thought we could handle the company together, me behind dinner, he at the forefront. But in 6 months, he got me out of the main office, turned it into a rest area, and told the team I was transitioning into an operational role. I didn't argue. I just transferred everything important to an archivist, closed in my home studio. Thomas and I started meeting every month. We created the Fiat and Camisa Ramirez, then subsidiary holdings, then the property portfolio, intellectual only in my name. 3 years. That's how long I've been pretending. Not noticing how Javier interrupted me at the meetings, as I told clients who were less involved since Dad died. I let him believe that I didn't understand the digital side of the business, that I was slow to adapt. I let him believe what he wanted. But every deal that I closed, I read the letter. Girl. Every asset he thought he controlled, he never bothered to track beyond the front company. I didn't need revenge. I needed a future. And now he's on his way to Cancun with a fiancé who thinks he's entering a legacy built with charisma and heritage. Let them arrive. Let them try using the cards. Tomas had already called the bank. By morning, those accounts would be dust. The FIDE confiscation was armored. The company that really mattered was still mine. Tomas would be in Merida before breakfast. At 2:17 a.m., the phone started ringing. I was already awake. I had prepared a cup of chamomile and was sitting at the kitchen table in a quiet and clean place, waiting for the inevitable. The screen showed Javier's name. I let it ring twice before answering. "Mom," he said with a sharp, agitated voice, "there's a problem with the bank." I took a sip. "Yes?" "The funds," his voice rose, "they're not in the account. We checked upon arrival. Our cards were declined at the hotel. They say the account doesn't exist." "I understand," I said. "Have you called the bank?" "Of course we called the bank," he snapped. "They said the account was closed yesterday." "Closed? How does that happen? You didn't close it, right?" "Banks aren't mine," I answered softly, calmly. He snorted loudly. I heard Lorena's voice in the background, sharper than his, pressing him. "He has to fix this now," she said. Javier returned to the line. "Mom, I need you to call Tomas. Something went wrong with the papers. The money should already be transferred." "It's almost 3 in the morning here," I said. "I'll call him in the morning." "You don't have to call him now," he shouted. "We're in Cancun, Mom. We're supposed to check into the suite, but the cards aren't working. The hotel wants another method of payment." "Sounds stressful." Silence. And then, "Mom, please." I paused before speaking. "Javier, you sold what you thought was the whole company. What you really sold was 30%. A name, a desk, some leases. Nothing more." The line went completely silent. "What?" The assets you never asked about continue. Manufacturing rights, international contracts, goods, commercial routes. They were never Ernesto's, and they never passed to you. You're lying, he whispered. Tomas must be arriving at your hotel now. I made sure to reserve a room nearby. He will explain everything to you in legal terms. Kindly. Lorena picked up the phone. Alma, this is absurd. Javier told me. It's Javier, I corrected. I don't care what he's called, she snapped. You left us stranded here. That's illegal. We're going to sue. With what money? More silence. Tell me, Lorena, I added. When you checked the incorporation documents, did you notice that the asset annexes were missing? That the Merida Trust, the one that has the true value of Textiles Ramirez, did you read those logs? Or the ones from Patterson Holdings? Or the registration of intellectual property? I heard nothing, more than the faint hum of the lobby music. Then a voice, Tomas's, calm, unmistakable, measured. Ah, I said. He's arrived. Let him explain. Javier came back on the line in a low voice. You planned this. I prepared all this, I said. There's a difference. I hung up without saying goodbye. The tea had become lukewarm, but I finished it anyway. Then I got up, walked around the dark house, and turned on the hall lights. There were files to review and a report to finalize for the renewal of licenses in Germany. I was expecting that call. I was also waiting for the next one. The second call came 20 hours later. I was in the garden cutting withered roses. My cell phone vibrated in my apron pocket. I didn't rush to answer. Mom, said Javier. His voice was low, rough, tired. We need to talk. I didn't say anything. We'll be back tomorrow. Night flight. What money did you use? I called Uncle Gabriel. He sent us enough for the tickets. I nodded slowly, even though he couldn't see me. This is still my home, Javier. I'll be here. There was a long pause before he spoke again. We'll talk when I get there. I hung up without ceremony. The following night, past 6 o'clock, I heard the car pull up. I saw him through the kitchen blinds, a rental, smaller than usual. I waited. I let 2 full minutes pass before opening the door. Javier stood alone on the porch with his suitcase in his hand. His shirt was wrinkled. He looked thinner, worn out. Lorena was nowhere to be seen. Where is she? I asked. She left, in the hotel lobby in Cancun. She said I was on my own. I stepped aside and let him in. I need a place to stay, he said, just for a time, until I fix things. I crossed my arms. There's a free room. 500 pesos per night. No exceptions. He blinked and gave a short, bitter laugh. You're charging me rent. I'm offering you a roof, not a clean slate, and I expect you to help with the chores. No night visits, no complaints. He nodded once, eyes low. It's fine. The following days were silent, but with an edge. I made a schedule of tasks, and he followed it without protest. Clean the windows on Monday. Sweep the back porch on Tuesday. Go for the errands on Thursday with a written list from me. He cooked dinner twice a week. The first night he burned the chicken and didn't look me in the eyes. The second was edible. I didn't ask about Lorena. He didn't say anything. We moved like planets orbiting a shared silence, close enough to feel the pull, far enough not to crash. I saw him shudder every time he passed by the framed photo of Ernesto on the hallway shelf. Sunday found me on the patio, folding clothes. He stood nearby, uncomfortable, arms loose at his sides. I've been thinking, he said, about the company, what I thought I knew. I didn't say anything. I kept folding. I didn't see it. No, I really thought I understood what Dad built. But it was you. It was always you. I kept folding until the last towel was stacked. Then I looked at him. And what are you going to do with that understanding? I want to learn. For real. From scratch. If you'll let me. I studied his tired face, less sure than I had ever seen before. Maybe because for the first time, he wasn't acting. Handling a business? I asked. No, a school. I'm willing to work. Seriously. For the first time. I took the laundry basket and walked past him to the door. Tomorrow morning, I said. 7 o'clock? Bring black coffee. We'll check the numbers from Tokyo together. He exhaled a small thread of relief. Peeking into the hallway, he stopped once more in front of Ernesto's photo. Dad always believed in you, he said. I didn't look back, but he let you believe he was in charge. That was his mistake. Don't repeat it. I heard him mutter, I won't. I didn't answer. I just kept walking past the office toward the solarium where the quarterly reports were waiting for me. Javier never missed a single day at 7 in the morning, not even when the pipes froze and the light flickered during breakfast. He brought black coffee, sugar-free. He arrived with a notebook, sometimes with pages already full. I don't know why I asked, I just did it. At first, I let myself be observed, sitting in silence during calls with suppliers, reviewing the summaries that I had already noted. I gave him access to archived contracts and asked him to track down discrepancies in ancient licensing agreements. He spent 3 days reviewing a broken distribution contract from 2014. When he gave me a summary, I expected the usual superficial notes. Instead, he pointed to a clause that had escaped 2 of our lawyers at the time. I didn't say anything, but I kept it in mind. Weeks passed. He began to handle more projects, small at first, follow-ups with suppliers, translation audits for our expansion in Tokyo, budget projections for our line of ecological textiles. His questions were sharper, more reflective, less about giving the correct answer, and more about understanding the terrain. On the 3rd month, I started taking him to meetings with clients, just a few. I presented him as Javier Ramirez, Director of Operations. It wasn't a title I gave lightly. He didn't win it by lineage, he won it with silent work, without expecting reward. One morning, while revisábamos un contrato de renovación with our German partner, I noticed there were 3 options written in the margin. One of them coincided with what I had marked the night before. I slid the folder aside and looked at him. You're good at this, I said. He blinked, unsure if he heard right. Do you see beyond the numbers? That's rare. He nodded slowly, without a smile, just taking it in. Dad made it look easy, he said. I thought it was all about charisma, charm in a boardroom, a handshake, and a strong voice. But this work is quieter than I believed. It's the silence that makes it hold. I said your father was good at opening doors. I built the foundations. He didn't speak for a moment. Then he said he never told me that. He didn't need to. You wouldn't have listened. This time he didn't argue. That week, I found him alone in the office, reviewing archived videos from meetings 10 years ago. I didn't know he saw me watching from the hallway. His eyes were fixed on the screen, on Ernesto speaking with confidence, while I, at his side, turned pages of notes, pointing to numbers discreetly off camera. Javier repeated the same moment twice, then 3 times, watching his father talk, watching me calculate. The next day, he brought the international licensing book I hadn't asked him to read. He had 2 pages of notes. I want to restructure the renewal calendar, he said. We're tied to overlapping territories with 3 minor players. It's inefficient. I waited for arrogance. The eagerness to impress wasn't there. "Show me your breakdown," I said. He handed it to me firmly. That night, as we cleared the table after dinner, he stopped with a plate in hand. "I'm not sure who I was trying to be before," he said, "but I know I didn't like it." "Then don't do it again." He nodded. "I want to continue learning from you if you keep teaching." "I'm already doing it." He started loading the dishwasher. I returned to the solarium, opened the mail from the Hernandez group, and reviewed their response. They asked for a meeting and wanted Javier in the room. The Hernandez group signed its letter of intent 3 days after the meeting. Javier led the presentation. I watched from the other side of the table, firm voice, clear numbers, unadorned. Just competence, hard won. That night, I wrote the formal announcement for the internal team. Javier Ramirez, Director of Strategic Operations. No fuss, just right. I found him in the backyard, sleeves rolled up, watching the sunset settle on the trees. "It's official," I said, handing him the printed memorandum. "It goes out to the team tomorrow." He read it slowly, then folded it in half and set it on the table. "Thank you." I sat next to him, took my cell phone from my pocket, and opened the folder of saved audios. "I want you to hear something," I said. His jaw tensed. I played the first clip, his voice recorded months before, laughing with Lorena. "She has no idea what she has. I'll have her sign it. She'll be grateful just for being included." He looked down, shame slowly peeking through his face. The second audio was Ernesto's. "Your mother could outperform most executive directors half her age. If you don't see it, you're not as smart as I expected." Javier shuddered. His eyes reddened, but he didn't ask me to stop. When the third audio finished, his suggestion that I move to a symbolic advisory role, I put the cell phone between us and waited. He ran his hands through his hair, leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. "I said all that," he whispered. "God, I was so sure I knew more." "You weren't the first to think so," I said, "and you won't be the last. I thought Dad built it all. He built a name. I built what held it up." I didn't want to believe that. "I know." He looked at me. "Why didn't you expose me then? Why did you let me walk toward my own failure?" "Because if I had protected you from the fall, you would never have learned to get up." We stayed silent for a moment. "I thought they owed me something," he said, "just for being born into this." "Respect isn't inherited, Javier. It's earned, just like trust." He nodded slowly. Then his cell phone vibrated on the table. Unknown number. No answer. Later that night, my own cell phone rang. Lorena. I didn't hesitate. Alma started with a small, unsure voice. "I owe you an apology." "I hear you." "I was wrong. About you. About everything. Javier and I were careless. Arrogant. I see it now." I didn't say anything. "I called to say I'm sorry, and I want to ask if he's okay." "He's here. He's rebuilding." "Will he talk to me?" I looked across the room once. Javier was sitting on the floor next to the bookshelf, sorting out old files. His posture was no longer rigid. He raised his gaze when I said her name. "It's Lorena," I said. "She's looking for you." He didn't speak immediately. He just held my gaze. "I'll leave it to you," I said in a low voice, "whether you answer or not." I put the cell phone on the counter and walked away, leaving him to decide.